Tonight your phone will buzz. You will look. You always look. There is a reason for that, and it has nothing to do with willpower. You tell yourself you'll check it later. You don't. Within minutes, sometimes seconds, your hand moves on its own. You unlock the screen, scroll for a moment, find nothing urgent, and put it down again. Then you pick it up again 10 minutes later. This feels like a modern problem, a flaw of the smartphone age. But the real answer is far stranger. The pull you feel is not new. It is not even human. It is something your brain learned to do millions of years before screens existed. And the phone in your pocket simply found the oldest switch in your skull and started flipping it on purpose. Start with a pigeon. In the 1950s, a psychologist named B.F. Skinner ran an experiment that would quietly explain your phone habit decades before phones existed. He put pigeons in a box with a lever. Peck the lever, get a food pellet. Simple. But Skinner didn't just want to know if pigeons could learn. He wanted to know what kind of reward made them peck the hardest. So he changed the rules. Instead of giving a pellet every time the pigeon pecked, he gave one only sometimes on no fixed schedule at all. Sometimes the pigeon got food after one peck, sometimes after 20. There was no way to predict it. What happened next surprised even Skinner. The pigeons given unpredictable rewards pecked far more than the ones given a reward every single time. They pecked harder. They pecked longer. They pecked even when the food stopped coming entirely, refusing to believe the well had run dry. Skinner called this a variable ratio reinforcement schedule, which is just a technical way of saying, reward someone unpredictably, and you will hook them more deeply than if you reward them constantly. Certainty is satisfying. Uncertainty is addictive. Why would an animal's brain be built this way? Because in the wild, that uncertainty was the entire game. Picture an early human walking through tall grass 40,000 years ago looking for food. There is no guarantee under any particular bush. Sometimes there are berries. Often there is nothing. The forager who gave up after one empty bush would starve. The forager whose brain rewarded the act of searching itself, who felt a small flicker of anticipation with every new bush regardless of outcome, kept looking. That flicker kept them alive long enough to find the next meal. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups, including the Hadza of Tanzania, have documented this pattern directly. Researchers like Kristen Hawkes, who spent years observing Hadza foraging behavior, found that humans don't search randomly. They search according to a kind of internal cost-benefit calculation, constantly weighing whether the next patch of forest is worth checking. But underneath, that calculation sits something older and less rational, a craving for the next unknown. The uncertainty itself pulls the body forward, bush after bush, slope after slope. That craving was never built for berries specifically. It was built for the act of looking. Does that sound familiar yet? Your phone is not a tool that occasionally contains good news. It is a tall grass field of infinite bushes, and every app on it has been designed deliberately by people who studied Skinner's pigeons to make the next swipe feel like the next bush. You don't know if the next scroll will contain something funny, something upsetting, a message from someone you love, or nothing at all. That unpredictability is not a bug in the design. It is the entire design. To understand why this feels so physically compelling, you have to look inside the brain itself, at a chemical you've probably heard described completely wrong. For decades, people called dopamine the pleasure chemical. That is not quite right, and the correction matters enormously for understanding your phone habit. A neuroscientist named Kent Berridge, working at the University of Michigan, ran a series of experiments that separated two things people had long assumed were the same: liking something and wanting something. Berridge found that dopamine isn't primarily about pleasure at all. It's about anticipation. It spikes not when you get the reward, but in the moments leading up to it, when the outcome is still uncertain. This is called incentive salience, a term that simply means your brain assigns a glowing, urgent importance to things associated with possible reward, even before you know if the reward is coming. Dopamine doesn't reward you for finding food. It rewards you for looking. The seeking itself becomes the thing your brain wants, sometimes even more than whatever you eventually find. So when your phone buzzes, the dopamine isn't waiting for you to read the message. It fires the moment you reach for the phone, while the outcome is still unknown. By the time you actually see what the notification says, the chemical peak has often already passed. The checking was the reward. The content almost doesn't matter. This is why you can check your phone, find nothing important, feel a small letdown, and reach for it again 20 minutes later anyway. You're not chasing the content. You're chasing the moment just before you know. Here is the twist that makes this even stranger. Your ancestors' foraging brain had a built-in stopping point. Bushes run out. Forests have edges. Eventually, you've searched the whole hillside, found what there was to find, and your body, tired and full, lets the craving rest. The ancient system that kept Skinner's pigeons pecking and kept your ancestors checking one more bush was never designed to run without limit, because in the natural world, nothing offered limitless unpredictability. There was always a horizon. Your phone has no horizon. The feed never ends. The notifications never run out permanently. Every platform you use was engineered by teams who explicitly study behavioral psychology, who know about variable reinforcement and incentive salience, and who build infinite scrolling and unpredictable notification timing specifically, because they reproduce the exact conditions that made Skinner's pigeons peck without stopping. You are not weak for struggling against this. You are running million-year-old foraging software on a system that was never built to be exploited at this scale, by people who understand the software better than you do. Think about what that actually means for a moment. The same neural circuitry that once helped a small band of humans survive a hungry season by rewarding patience searching across an uncertain landscape has been extracted from that landscape and pointed directly at a feed that never depletes. Your hunger for information has been separated entirely from its original purpose. You're not foraging for food anymore. You're foraging for nothing, on a hillside engineered to never run out of bushes, by people paid to make sure you never stop looking under the next one. So is the answer just to throw the phone away? That misses the deeper point. The craving doesn't live in the phone. It lives in your skull, and it was there long before screens existed. Remove the phone and the craving simply finds another outlet, another uncertain hillside to search. The actual answer, the one researchers studying compulsive checking behavior keep circling back to, is recognizing the mechanism while it's happening. Noticing the urge to check as exactly what it is. An ancient foraging impulse, fired by uncertainty, not by need. That moment of recognition, the half-second pause where you catch the reach before it becomes a habit, is the only place where the old software meets new awareness. There's another piece of this puzzle worth sitting with because it explains something almost everyone has felt and almost no one can name. It's the specific anxiety of being away from your phone. Not boredom, not loneliness, something sharper. A low hum of unease that says, something might be happening and you don't know what it is. Psychologists have a term for this now. They call it the fear of missing out, often shortened to FOMO, and while the phrase is new, the feeling underneath it is ancient. For a forager 40,000 years ago, missing out was not an abstract emotional discomfort. It was a survival risk. If the rest of your group found a fruiting tree, a fresh kill, a water source, and you weren't there, you didn't just feel left out. You might actually starve while everyone else ate. Information about resources was, quite literally, the difference between living and dying. A brain that felt nothing about being out of the loop would have been a brain attached to a body that died younger, more often, leaving fewer descendants behind. So you inherited the opposite. You inherited a brain that treats being disconnected from the group's information flow as a quiet emergency, even when the actual stakes today are a missed meme or a group chat you weren't part of for an hour. The emergency feeling is real. The emergency itself almost never is. This is part of why putting the phone in another room can feel disproportionately uncomfortable, even when you know intellectually that nothing important is happening. Your forager brain doesn't deal in intellectual knowledge. It deals in pattern. And the pattern it recognizes is simple. Information is flowing somewhere and you are not there to receive it. That used to mean a missed harvest. Now it means a missed notification. Your nervous system, for the most part, cannot tell the difference. There's a further layer here, and it has to do with who you're checking for. Foraging was never a solitary activity for most of human history. Early humans lived and searched in small, tightly bound groups, and the most valuable information wasn't about berries at all. It was about other people. Who was angry with whom? Who had returned from a hunt? Who might be a threat, an ally, a mate? Researchers who study primate and early human social structures, including work building on Robin Dunbar's research on social group size and the cognitive limits of tracking relationships, point out that a huge portion of the human brain's processing power evolved specifically to monitor the social landscape, not the physical one. Status, alliance, gossip, reputation. These were resources every bit as real as food, and tracking them constantly was not a personality quirk. It was a job your ancestors' survival depended on. Now look at what's actually inside your phone. Not weather, not maps, although those are there too. Mostly it's people, messages from people, photos of people, opinions about people, arguments between people, the carefully curated highlight reels of people you've never met. Every app that keeps you scrolling longest is, underneath its specific function, a social information feed, tapping directly into that ancient circuitry built for tracking your tribe. You are not checking your phone 40 times a day because you're shallow or distracted. You're checking it because some very old part of your brain still believes that knowing what your tribe is doing right now is a matter of survival, and the app in your hand has positioned itself as your tribe's entire communication network. None of this means you're powerless. It means the problem has been misdiagnosed. Telling someone to simply use more willpower against a craving built by hundreds of thousands of years of evolutionary pressure, then engineered further by some of the most sophisticated behavioral design teams on the planet, is a bit like telling someone to hold their breath indefinitely through sheer determination. The system fighting against you is older, deeper, and more persistent than conscious effort alone can usually beat. What actually works, according to people who study compulsive technology use, tends to be less about resisting the urge in the moment and more about changing what's available to respond to. Removing notifications doesn't kill the foraging instinct, but it does remove the artificial unpredictability that triggers it constantly throughout the day. Setting specific times to check, rather than checking whenever the urge appears, gives your forager brain something it actually recognizes from its ancient environment: a defined territory to search, followed by a return home, rather than an endless field with no edges at all. Tonight your phone will buzz again. You will look. You always look. But maybe, for just a moment, you'll notice what's actually happening underneath that reach. You'll feel the same ancient pull that once moved a forager's hand toward an uncertain bush on a hillside 40,000 years ago. The same hum of unease that once warned your ancestors they were missing something the tribe already knew. And you'll recognize it for exactly what it is. Not weakness. Not a flaw unique to you in a uniquely distracted age. A survival instinct, beautifully built and badly aimed, still running, still searching, long after the hillside and the tribe and the hunger it was built for disappeared.